Do you see this lab test right here? My cortisol level was so high that the lab couldn't even plot it on their standard graph. Then they had to actually change the numerical range just to fit my result on the page. But the laboratory test wasn't broken. I was. And in this video, I'm going to show you how a functional medicine doctor got himself into this mess. But more importantly, I'm going to share with you how I got out of it and the exact steps that I took to normalize my cortisol curve over several months. So if you're gaining weight, you're feeling foggy, moody, anxious, depressed, if you're not sleeping well, and you never feel fully rested, you might be on the same path that I was on. Over the course of this video, I'm going to show you the symptoms that I ignored. I'm going to show my actual laboratory test with my name and the date of the testing on it, and then I'm going to share the 3 steps that I used to fix the curve. But most importantly, what I want to do is I want to take off my doctor mask. I want to take off my stethoscope and speak to you guys like another patient, because I wasn't doing well. I was feeling crappy, and I was really struggling to feel better. So the story begins in 2024. I was prototyping a course that I built recently called the iHeal course with 18 women from the US. And this is a really cool systems-based approach to natural medicine that turns complex biology into simple, actionable steps. Now, I'm really cool and proud of it, and I don't want to get into that right now because that's not what I want to focus on. What I was doing is I was building modules on a weekly basis and presenting them weekly. I was running a business and a virtual practice, and suffice to say, my pressure skyrocketed. And in front of my eyes, I felt my body changing. I was noticing progressive cognitive changes. I was having a hard time remembering medical concepts and medical terms. I was suffering from an afternoon exhaustion and taking naps, which is something that I've never, ever done before. And I have a sleep app that showed that I was snoring more and had less deep sleep. And finally, my libido was non-existent. Maybe you guys can relate. I mean, are you feeling fatigued, buzzing at the same time? Are you feeling that your memory's not working, that you're pushing through tasks? These could all be signs of a high cortisol state. And the other thing that I was doing is I was letting my diet decompensate a little bit. I was consuming potato chips and making worse food choices. And not surprisingly, I was gaining weight as well. So as part of the development of the iHeal course, I had to vet the lab that I was using before I used it with my course participants, and this included a 4-part salivary cortisol test. So I tested myself first, and what I'm showing you now is my initial result. Now, if you want to understand how to interpret a 4-part salivary cortisol test, I'll link it to a video up here. So let's take a look at my actual results. Now, over on the left, you see the total daily cortisol production, and you can see that it is up. Now, it's possible that this closely approximates what you'd expect to find in a conventional 24-hour urinary cortisol test. But the bottom line is that my cortisol was high over the course of the day. And when you look at the cortisol early in the morning, this is where they needed to redraw the laboratory results. I was being shot out of a cannon every morning, and this was a huge wake-up call. And the other thing that you'll notice is that the cortisol was high when I was going to sleep, so it should be no surprise that I wasn't sleeping well when my biology was telling me to run away from a tiger. So now what I want to do is share with you my follow-up test from 8 months later. I'm proud to say that this is a fully normal cortisol curve, and let me tell you, I was shocked because I've done a lot of these in my life. But what I noticed is that I was having improved symptoms. I had more energy, focus. I was sleeping better. My libido is back. So what I want to do in the rest of this video is go over the 3 steps that I took to improve my cortisol curve. And I can tell you off the bat that this isn't easy and it's going to require some focus, but as a result of this work, I'm back on a healthy path. My brain and my body are feeling great, and you guys can get there too. Step number 1 is find a good adaptogenic herb. These adaptogens help to blunt the cortisol response, and they have been well studied. My favorite is ashwagandha, and I found a good ashwagandha product that standardized with analytes, and I took it religiously, like 3 to 4 times a day. Now, I've done some other videos on my channel of some of the other scientifically supported adaptogenic herbs, but personally, my favorite is ashwagandha. I tolerate it well. Step number 2 is to get off the glucose and insulin roller coaster. Now, I'm a healthy eater. My baseline diet is Mediterranean, whole foods, and I will occasionally do some intermittent fasting as well. But at the time, intermittent fasting was the wrong step for me, because when I didn't maintain my blood sugar with food, my body turned to cortisol. And the other thing that happened was that I was spiking my insulin with the potato chips and the starchy foods. So the solution was to maintain some carbohydrates over the course of the day in association with healthy proteins and healthy fats. And what this did is it provided a slow, steady release of energy into my bloodstream. I stopped the potato chip binges, because what happened was when I was binging on carbohydrates, this caused my insulin to surge. When our insulin surges, we clear the glucose rapidly out of our bloodstream, and then I needed more cortisol to support my body's glucose. And what's interesting is that this was actually almost like a pre-diabetic wake-up call. As I've taught on this channel, high cortisol inhibits the way that insulin works. And you can see from this exact same set of laboratory sweets that my hemoglobin A1C was 5.7. This puts me into the pre-diabetic range. But I'm a lifetime athlete. I'm 6 feet tall, 170 pounds. I don't have the typical diabetic body. But what happened is that my high cortisol over the course of the day made me start to act like a diabetic. And your regular doctor might even put you on a drug for a hemoglobin A1C of 5.7. Again, I knew that I needed to normalize my cortisol. And step number 3 was prioritizing my sleep and recovery. I had a rule that was a hard off for all screens and electronics by 9 o'clock at night. I wore blue blocking glasses whenever I was on my screens. I gave up alcohol for a full 6 months. Now, I've never been a drinker. I call myself sober-ish, but I didn't drink alcohol at all. And I also switched from having my morning cup of regular coffee to decaffeinated coffee to offload the effects that caffeine might have been having at me to support that cortisol surge later at night. I didn't eat late, and I also undertook some pretty basic things like cooling the room, wearing eye shades, and using light blocking shades on my window. And the third step was to engage in some mental breaks and meditations. Now, I want to be clear to you guys, meditation is not like, wearing a saffron colored robe and, sitting in the lotus position and chanting Om. There are any number of different places that you can find a meditative space to help to offload some of the stressors that are going on in your brain and your adrenal glands. For me, I do great with a walk or a run in the woods. I spent some time reading or playing guitar. I spent time catching up with my daughter on the phone. These were all intentional mental breaks throughout the day to offload my cortisol response. So the reason I'm sharing this is because if you don't test your cortisol, you're not going to know where it is. Mainstream medicine gets it wrong. I mean, they might do a single morning cortisol test. Maybe they'll do a 24-hour cortisol collection, but never will your conventionally trained doctor obtain a 4-part salivary cortisol test like the ones I showed you in this video. I got myself better, and you guys can learn to do the same, and you don't need to be pinballing through different supplements, different testing, and different providers. So what's the next step? Are you guys curious about your own cortisol status? Because before you test your cortisol, be sure to watch my video on how cortisol dysfunction develops. This is linked in the description below. And hey, if you guys want to know more about this I Heal course, it's pretty cool. That's listed in the description below, and I hope to see you there.